I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Jake, and I'm a 32-year-old guy trying to rebuild my life after some mistakes that landed me on probation. For the last 2 years, I've been working hard to get my life on track. I found a decent job, went to therapy regularly, and stayed away from the people and places that dragged me down before. I thought my wife, Emily, was on board with me on this journey. We had been married for 4 years, and I honestly thought we were a team, but things had started to shift. Initially, it was subtle. She'd come home late from work, claiming she had to help with a big project. Emily works as a receptionist at a local law firm, so I figured she had a lot on her plate, but I couldn't shake this nagging feeling that something was off. Her phone would buzz constantly, and whenever I tried to glance at it, she'd quickly snatch it away, giving me a sarcastic smile and a "don't you trust me." I'd laugh it off, thinking I was just being paranoid. I'd even convinced myself that it was because I was so focused on my own issues that I was projecting my insecurities onto her. Then came the comment that changed everything. I was at my probation officer's office, sitting across from Officer Miller, a tall guy with a buzz cut who had been pretty supportive during my time on probation. He was going through my progress report when he casually mentioned how he ran into Emily the night before. She was out with some friends, he said, but there was something about the way he said it that made my heart race. He then added, she seemed really cozy with another guy. My heart sank and my stomach twisted into knots. I brushed it off with a weak laugh, but inside my mind was racing. I couldn't believe it. Emily was with another man. The thought was like poison seeping through my veins. I left the office that day, a million thoughts spiraling through my mind. I tried to convince myself he must have been mistaken. After all, Emily was my wife. She loved me, right? But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces started to fit together. Those late nights, the secretive phone, the sudden distance between us, it all made sense now. When I got home that evening, I confronted her. I just couldn't hold back any longer. Emily, are you seeing someone else? The look on her face was priceless. She feigned shock, her eyes wide as if I had just accused her of murder. What? Are you serious? How could you even think that? She snapped, brushing it off as if it was the most ridiculous accusation she had ever heard. But then I noticed her body language, the way she shifted her weight from one foot to another, the way her eyes darted away from mine. I could see she was lying. I pressed her further, recalling Officer Miller's comment. She scoffed at me, but her expression shifted, a hint of annoyance creeping in. Jake, you're being paranoid. Of course I'm not cheating. I'm busy with work and you know how demanding it can be. But I wasn't buying it. I pushed harder, demanding the truth, and she finally blurted out something that hit like a punch to the gut. What do you want from me? I'm tired of your drama and insecurities. You have enough problems to worry about without dragging me down with you. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. This was a woman who had promised to stand by me through thick and thin. How could she say that? In that moment, I felt utterly crushed, the weight of her betrayal crushing down on me like a ton of bricks. As days went by, the anger turned into a deep sadness. I felt lost, trying to come to terms with the fact that the woman I loved had betrayed me. I began to notice every little thing that reminded me of her lies, the way she laughed at texts, how she took calls in the other room, and the way she would come home smelling of cologne that wasn't hers. I felt like I was living in a nightmare with no way out. I had to figure out what I wanted. Should I confront her again, or should I let it go and simply move on? I never imagined I'd be in this position, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let this slide. I wanted revenge, not just for the affair, but because I felt like my entire life had come crashing down due to her betrayal. The seeds of a plan began to form in my mind. I wanted her to feel the pain that she had inflicted on me. I was going to make sure she understood the consequences of her actions. But first, I needed proof and a way to execute my plan effectively. I would find a way to make her pay for what she did. After that confrontation, I felt a strange blend of rage and determination brewing inside me. I didn't want to wallow in my sadness. I wanted to take action. It wasn't just about getting revenge. It was about regaining my power. For too long, I had felt like a victim in my own life, and now I was ready to reclaim that control. The first step was to gather proof of Emily's infidelity. I needed to know the full extent of her betrayal before I moved forward. I started by paying closer attention to her routines. I noticed that on Thursdays she would leave work early, claiming she had a meeting that often ran late. It struck me as odd since these meetings never seemed to have any follow-up. I decided to take a day off from my probation appointments and tail her. I felt like a detective, but I was determined to find out where she was going and who she was with. That Thursday, I waited until I saw her pull out of the driveway in her little red sedan. My heart raced as I got in my own car and followed her. She drove across town, and my anxiety grew with every turn. I couldn't believe I was doing this, but I had to know. We had too much history for me to just let this go without finding out the truth. Emily drove to a bar that I knew all too well, the kind of place I used to hang out with my friends before everything went south. It had a dimly lit atmosphere, and the sound of laughter and clinking glasses seeped through the door as I parked my car across the street. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, as I watched her walk into the bar. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. This was it. After a few minutes, I gathered the courage to get out of the car and find a spot where I could see her through the window. I positioned myself behind a low wall, peeking out just enough to catch a glimpse of her inside. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could barely breathe. A sense of dread washed over me, and I felt like I was about to uncover something that would change everything. Then I saw him. A guy in a leather jacket, looking way too cool for comfort, walked into the bar and headed straight for her. My stomach dropped. They exchanged smiles that seemed way too intimate for two people who were just friends. I leaned closer, straining to hear their conversation, and it didn't take long for my worst fears to be confirmed. "Can you believe how stupid Jake is?" Emily laughed, taking a sip of her drink. "He thinks I'm working late every Thursday. He has no idea what I'm really up to." I could feel my heart crack a little more with every word. It was like she was throwing the dagger right into my chest. The anger was bubbling up inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm and focused. I needed to keep watching. I needed to gather evidence, not just for my own sake, but to confront her with concrete proof that she couldn't deny. A few minutes later, they moved to a booth in the back corner. My heart raced as I watched them lean in closer, their body language screaming intimacy. She reached out and touched his hand, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. They laughed together, and I had never seen her look so carefree. It was a stark contrast to the guilt-ridden woman I had confronted not long ago. As I continued to observe them, I noticed how they chatted and flirted. It was obvious they were more than just friends. I pulled out my phone, trying to discreetly record a video, but my hands were shaking so much that it was hard to keep the camera steady. I knew I had to capture this moment, yet all I wanted to do was storm in there and confront them both. But I held back. I needed to be smart about this. I waited as they continued their drinks, and I took note of the time. I needed to know when they would leave the bar so I could follow them back home, or at the very least, catch them in the act. After what felt like an eternity, they finally stood up to leave. I quickly ducked down and let them pass, waiting a few moments before I followed. They walked out of the bar, laughing and joking, oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. My gut twisted as I watched them head toward her car. To my shock, instead of parting ways, the guy leaned in and kissed her. It was a short kiss, but it felt like a betrayal that cut deeper than I could ever have imagined. I took a step back, feeling a wave of anger and hurt crash over me. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I restrained myself. I wasn't going to be that guy. This was about strategy now. I got back to my car and waited for them to drive off, my heart racing. I needed to capture their license plate to gather as much information as I could. I felt like I was on a mission, but all I could think about was how this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and my dignity. As I pulled out of my parking space, I couldn't shake the feeling of humiliation and anger. I followed them back to our neighborhood, my head swirling with thoughts. What would I do with this information? How would I confront her? I needed to figure it all out, but for now, I had what I came for: proof that Emily was cheating on me, and I was ready to make her pay for it. I drove home that night, my mind racing with plans and possibilities. I'd make her feel every ounce of pain she had caused me. I was done being the victim. When I got home, the weight of what I'd witnessed was almost too much to bear. I felt like a volcano ready to erupt, and I knew I had to be careful about how I approached the situation. Emily was already home, her typical cheerful demeanor seeming out of place after everything I had just seen. She was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she prepared dinner. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the air. But for me, it was nauseating. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts before confronting her again. I needed a plan, but all I could think about was the betrayal, the lies, and the way she had treated me. The anger bubbled beneath the surface, but I forced myself to remain calm. I wanted her to feel the impact of her actions, and I needed to be smart about it. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, walking into the living room with a bright smile on her face. She looked beautiful in her flowy dress, but the sight made my stomach churn. I could barely meet her gaze. "Just the same old stuff," I replied, trying to sound casual. I could feel my heartbeat echoing in my ears. "What about you? Did you have your meeting?" Her smile faltered for a moment, and I could see a flicker of uncertainty cross her face. "Oh, you know how it is. Just a lot of boring paperwork," she replied, her voice a little too cheerful, her eyes darting away from mine. I wanted to scream, "You're lying," but I held my tongue. I needed to bide my time and gather more evidence. As much as I wanted to confront her right then and there, I decided to play it cool. I wanted to make sure I had all my ducks in a row, so I started putting together everything I had witnessed. I made a mental note to keep my phone handy for videos and photos, and I began to think about how to best catch her off guard. The next few days were torturous. I kept an eye on her every move, and I noticed more signs of her deception. She started arriving home later than usual, her excuses becoming more elaborate. I had to help a coworker, or there was a last-minute meeting, the same line she'd fed me before. Each lie felt like a dagger in my heart. I knew I couldn't let it continue. I decided to enlist the help of a friend, Max, who had been with me through thick and thin. He had always been the kind of guy who could see the bright side of things, but even he was furious when I told him what was going on. "You deserve better, man. Let's figure this out." Max suggested we set up an elaborate plan to catch Emily in the act. He was excellent with tech and said he could help me install a hidden camera in the house. "We'll get the proof you need, and then you can confront her with it. There's no denying something caught on video," he said, and I couldn't agree more. We spent the next few days planning our operation. I felt like I was in a movie, plotting revenge against the villain. It was oddly empowering. Max helped me set up the camera in the living room, making sure it was discreet but effective. If Emily brought her lover over, there was no way she could escape what we'd capture. Finally, the night of the big reveal arrived. I was a bundle of nerves, packing back and forth in our bedroom as I waited for Emily to come home. I had decided to act like everything was normal. I'd cooked her favorite dinner and set up a cozy atmosphere. I wanted her to let her guard down. Little did she know, I was ready for the confrontation of a lifetime. When she finally walked through the door, I greeted her with a smile. "Hey babe, I made your favorite chicken Alfredo." She looked pleasantly surprised and genuinely happy. "Wow, you didn't have to do that," she exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. I could barely keep a straight face, knowing that moments later everything was going to change. We sat down to eat and I made small talk, pretending everything was fine. I watched her closely, searching for signs of guilt, but she seemed blissfully unaware. As we ate, she chatted about her day, and I struggled to keep up the facade. I could feel the weight of the hidden camera looming over us, and I knew I was one step closer to uncovering her treachery. After dinner, I suggested we unwind with a movie. Emily agreed enthusiastically, and I chose a classic film, something light and entertaining to keep her relaxed. As the movie played, I could feel the tension building inside me, and I was ready to explode. I had to wait for the right moment to strike, to expose the truth and watch her reaction. Finally, as the credits rolled, I took a deep breath and turned to her. "Hey, there's something I need to talk to you about." Her expression shifted slightly and I could see her instincts kicking in. "What's up?" she asked, a hint of wariness creeping into her voice. "It's about us and well, I think we need to have a serious conversation about trust," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. Her eyes narrowed slightly and I could see the gears turning in her head. "Jake, you're being really weird. What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice rising just a notch. "Actually, I think I have something that you need to see," I replied, reaching for my phone. I pulled up the video footage we had captured and I could feel my hands shaking as I prepared to reveal it. The moment of truth was here and I was ready to watch her world unravel. "Emily, this is what I saw last Thursday," I said, pressing play on the video. The screen flickered to life, showing her at the bar, laughing and flirting with the guy in the leather jacket. I swallowed hard as I watched her smile, her betrayal playing out before my eyes. "Jake, what is this?" she gasped, her voice dripping with disbelief. I could barely contain my rage anymore. "This is you, Emily. This is you with another man. You think I wouldn't find out?" Her face paled and I watched as the color drained from her cheeks. The feigned innocence melted away as the reality of her actions hit her like a ton of bricks. "I can explain," she stammered, but I was done listening to her excuses. "No, you can't. You've lied to me this entire time," I shouted, feeling the weight of betrayal bearing down on me. In that moment, I realized that I had the power. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I had taken control of my story. I wanted her to feel the pain she had caused me, and I couldn't wait to see how she would try to spin her version of the truth. The confrontation was just beginning, and I was ready for the fight. The atmosphere in the room turned electric as the video played on. Emily's initial shock morphed into defensive fury. "You have no idea what you're talking about, Jake. That's not what it looks like," she shouted, her voice rising in pitch. Her denial, the way she clutched at straws, only fueled my anger further. I had witnessed firsthand the betrayal she had woven, and now she wanted to play the victim. "Not what it looks like, really," I shot back, feeling the heat of rage surging through me. "There you are, laughing and flirting with some guy, and you think I'm just supposed to ignore it. You've been lying to me for weeks, Emily. This isn't some misunderstanding." She opened her mouth to retort, but I wasn't about to let her twist this into something manageable for her. I wasn't going to allow her to manipulate the situation any further. "Tell me who he is. Do I know him?" I demanded, narrowing my eyes. I could see the panic rising within her, and it felt satisfying to finally see her on the defensive. "Jake, please, I swear it's not what you think. He's just a friend from work," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her tone. "You know how stressful my job has been. I just wanted to blow off some steam." "Blow off steam," I repeated incredulously. "By making out with some random guy? That's your idea of blowing off steam?" I could feel my heart racing as the reality of our situation settled in. I had spent the last few years trying to make things right, to rebuild my life, and now here she was, tearing everything down with her choices. This was not just about infidelity. It was about her blatant disregard for our marriage and the promises we had made to each other. "Jake," she said, her voice softening as she desperately sought to regain my sympathy. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake. You have to believe me." But I couldn't believe her. Every word that left her lips felt like another betrayal. "A mistake? You've been seeing him for weeks, haven't you? You think I'm just going to let this slide because you call it a mistake?" I took a deep breath, forcing myself to remain composed even as my emotions churned wildly within me. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to show her just how much her betrayal hurt. But I couldn't afford to lose control. I needed to stay focused. "I want you to tell me everything," I said firmly. "I want to know how long this has been going on and why you thought it was okay to betray me like this." Her eyes darted away and I could tell she was weighing her options. It's been a few months, okay, but it didn't mean anything. I was lonely and I thought you were too busy with your own issues to notice." The words stung more than I expected. "Lonely," I echoed, incredulity lacing my voice. "You think that gives you the right to cheat? I was trying to turn my life around and you just threw our marriage away. You didn't even think to talk to me about how you were feeling." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't feel a single ounce of sympathy. I was past that point. She had chosen to betray me, and now I would make sure she understood there were consequences. "You're going to regret this," I said quietly, my voice steady. I'm going to make sure you experience the emotional fallout of this. You think you can just lie and get away with it, as her. Tears began to spill over. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. You don't get to cry now, Emily. You had your chance to be honest and you chose a different path. I've been nothing but loyal to you and you've spat in my face. Emily looked genuinely remorseful for the first time, her demeanor shifting. Jake, I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would go this far. I thought I could handle it without hurting you. I shook my head, feeling sick at the manipulation. You didn't think about me at all. All you cared about was your own satisfaction. You don't get to play the sorry card now that you've been caught. We fell into a tense silence, the anger simmering between us. I could feel the weight of my conviction pressing down on me. I couldn't just let this go. I had to make a decision about how I would proceed from here. Here, what's going to happen? I began, my voice steady and resolute. I'm going to gather everything I need to know about you and him. I'll document every moment you've lied to me, every excuse you've made. And when I'm ready, I'll confront him too. You can't just walk away from this. Please, Jake, don't do this. You don't have to go that far, she pleaded, but I was already shutting her down. Oh, I absolutely do. You've taken everything away from me, and I will not let you walk away unscathed. You think this is just about you and your friend. No, this is about the betrayal of trust, and I'm going to make sure you understand the depth of your actions. Emily's expression shifted from fear to defiance. You think you can just control this? You have no idea what you're getting yourself into, she shot back, her voice flaring with indignation. For a brief moment I felt a flicker of uncertainty. Had I gone too far? But the fire of betrayal burned too brightly to ignore. I'm not trying to control anything, I said, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm just trying to reclaim my dignity, something you've trampled on. In a moment of clarity, I realized I didn't just want revenge. I wanted to take the power back. I wanted to rise above this moment to show her that I wouldn't be just another victim in her story. The confrontation had rocked our relationship to its core, but I knew I had the upper hand now. Emily had chosen her path, and I was ready to confront the fallout. This was only the beginning of a long and painful road, but I was determined to see it through. As I walked away from her, my mind raced with thoughts of how I would execute my plan. I wouldn't just let her off easy. I needed to ensure that she recognized the gravity of her betrayal. I had my proof, and now it was time to turn the tables on her deceit. I would make sure she'd regret the day she chose to cheat on me. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and strategizing. I was on a mission, determined to expose Emily's betrayal to the world, starting with the man who had wormed his way into our lives. I couldn't shake the feeling of anger that coursed through my veins every time I thought of her laughing with him, sharing moments that should have been ours. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my sense of self-worth. I spent hours researching the man in the leather jacket, the one who had invaded my life without me knowing. His name was Ben, and I learned that he worked at the same law firm as Emily, a position that allowed him to exploit her vulnerability while she was navigating her own struggles. I found out where he lived and even gathered some intel from mutual acquaintances. The more I learned, the more I tightened the noose around them, sentimentally preparing for the confrontation that was to come. Max was my sounding board during this time. He helped me keep my focus, reminding me that this wasn't just about punishing Emily but also about asserting my own dignity. You need to confront him, too, Max said one evening as we sat in my living room, piecing together our plan. He's just as complicit in this as she is. He should know who he's messing with. I nodded, the idea settling in my gut. It felt right. I wasn't just going to make Emily pay for her choices. I would hold Ben accountable as well. The thought of confronting him sent a surge of adrenaline through me. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to make my presence felt. The night of the confrontation arrived, and I felt an unsettling mix of anticipation and anxiety. I had arranged to meet Ben at a bar near his apartment, a place I was sure he frequented. I arrived early, my heart racing as I scanned the room. When I spotted him, leaning casually against the bar with a drink in hand, I felt that familiar rush of anger. I took a moment to compose myself, reminding myself of why I was there. As I approached, I could feel the tension building within me. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, and the goal of confronting him propelled me forward. I wasn't going to let this guy walk away unscathed. He needed to understand the consequences of his actions. "Ben," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He turned, a look of surprise washing over his features. "We need to talk." His expression shifted from confusion to recognition, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. "Who are you?" he asked, feigning ignorance, but I wasn't about to let him play games. "I'm Jake, Emily's husband," I said, my voice firm, "and you've been seeing her behind my back." For a moment he looked taken aback, but then a smirk spread across his face. "Oh, so you're the husband. I didn't think she was still attached." His casual tone ignited a fire within me, and I stepped closer, anger bubbling to the surface. "I don't care what you thought," I shot back, my voice low and dangerous. "You've taken something that doesn't belong to you, and I'm here to make sure you understand exactly what you're getting yourself into." Ben laughed, a dismissive sound that only fueled my rage. "You think you can intimidate me? You have no idea who you're dealing with." I leaned in, my voice steady and filled with conviction. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with, a man who preys on vulnerable women while they're trying to rebuild their lives. You think you're untouchable, but let me assure you, I'm not going to let you walk away from this." The tension in the air thickened as he studied my face, perhaps weighing his options. I could see the cockiness beginning to fade. "Listen, man, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Emily and I—" "Save it," I interrupted, cutting him off. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You're just as guilty as she is, and I'm going to make sure both of you pay for what you've done. You think you can just come into my life and take what's mine without any consequences? That's not how this works." Ben's bravado began to wane, and I could see his confidence slipping. "Okay, okay. Let's not make this a bigger deal than it has to be," he said, trying to backtrack, but I wasn't having it. "You've already made it a big deal, and now you're going to face the fallout. I'm going to tell her family, your boss, and anyone else who needs to know what you're really about." He opened his mouth to respond, but I pressed on. "You had your fun, but I won't let you keep doing this without repercussions. You think you can just walk away from this? Not happening." Ben shifted uncomfortably, clearly starting to realize the gravity of what I was saying. "Look, man, I'm sorry for how things turned out. I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he said, trying to sound contrite. "Sorry doesn't cut it," I replied, my voice cold and unyielding. "You don't get to play the remorseful guy when you've been sneaking around behind my back. If you valued your life and reputation at all, you'd back off and leave Emily alone." He looked at me, his bravado completely shattered. "Fine. I'll stay away from her," he muttered, clearly not prepared for the storm I represented. "Good. Because I'll be watching, and if I find out you've contacted her again, I won't hesitate to expose everything," I said, my voice low and threatening. With that, I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving him standing there in shock. The adrenaline coursed through my veins as I stepped outside, feeling a mix of triumph and anger. I had stood up for myself, confronted the man who had invaded my life, and sent him a clear message that I wouldn't be backing down. As I drove home, I couldn't help but feel a weight lift off my shoulders. I had taken control of the narrative, and I wouldn't let anyone else dictate my fate. But I knew the real battle was still ahead, confronting Emily again and ensuring she understood the consequences of her actions. When I got home, I found her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up as I walked in, her expression shifting to one of concern. "Jake, where have you been? I was getting worried," she said, but I could see the tension in her posture. "I was out," I replied, my voice flat. "We need to talk again." Her eyes widened, and I could see the realization dawn on her face. She was about to face the aftermath of her choices, and I was ready to ensure she understood the gravity of what had transpired. This was not just about her affair. It was about respect, trust, and the future of our marriage. "Emily," I said, my tone serious. "I confronted Ben tonight. He thinks he can just walk away without any consequences, but I'm not going to let that happen. You both need to understand what you've done." As I watched her face drain of color, I knew we were on the brink of another explosive confrontation. And this time, she wouldn't have the luxury of dodging responsibility. The betrayal had set us on a path that would change everything, and I was ready to see it through to the end. Emily's expression shifted as I laid out the details of my confrontation with Ben. The disbelief in her eyes morphed into something resembling fear, and I could see the reality of her situation begin to sink in. This wasn't just a casual affair anymore. It was a full-blown crisis that had the potential to unravel everything she thought she could control. "Jake, I can explain everything," she stammered, her voice shaky. "You have to understand, I wasn't thinking straight. It was just a moment of weakness." A moment of weakness. I shot back, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "You think that gives you a free pass to cheat on me? You were with him for months, Emily. That's not a moment of weakness, that's a choice." She opened her mouth to defend herself, but I cut her off, the anger bubbling over. "You can't spin this. You can't just cry and expect me to feel sorry for you. You made your bed and now you need to lie in it. You think I'd ever trust you again after this?" Her defenses crumbled, and for the first time I saw genuine regret on her face. "I never wanted to hurt you, Jake. I swear I thought we were drifting apart, and I just wanted someone to make me feel alive again. But I see now how selfish that was. And you think I didn't feel the same way?" I replied, my voice steadying just a bit. "I've been working hard to rebuild my life, to make something of myself after everything that happened. I thought we were in it together, but you've shown me that I was wrong." The silence between us was thick, filled with the unsaid and the unresolved. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I tried to process my emotions. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw everything in our home around, but I knew that wouldn't change what had happened. I needed to focus on what I wanted. "I've decided I can't be with you anymore," I finally said, my voice unwavering. "I can't marry someone who would betray me so completely, who would choose someone else over our relationship. This was more than just a mistake. It was a conscious decision to hurt me." Emily's face crumpled and tears streamed down her cheeks. "Jake, please don't say that. I'll do anything to fix this. We can go to couples therapy. I swear I'll change. Just don't leave me." But the desperation only solidified my resolve. "You've broken my trust in a way that can't be fixed. I can't keep pretending that everything is going to be okay when it's not. I need to prioritize my own well-being, and I can't do that while you're in my life." Her sobs filled the room, and I felt a pang of sympathy for the woman I once loved. But at the same time, I couldn't let that pity sway my decision. I had been through hell trying to turn my life around, and I wasn't going to allow her choices to drag me back down. "Jake, please, I love you." "I didn't mean for it to happen," she cried, but I held up my hand to stop her. "I can't listen to your excuses anymore. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences. I'm filing for separation, and I think it's best if you find somewhere else to stay for a while." The look on her face was a mixture of disbelief and heartbreak, and for a second I felt a flicker of doubt. But I quickly reminded myself that this was about protecting my own heart. I couldn't allow myself to be pulled back into the cycle of hurt and betrayal. As Emily packed her bags, the gravity of the situation began to weigh heavily on both of us. It felt surreal watching her move through our shared home. Each item she placed in the suitcase felt like a piece of my heart breaking. But I had to remind myself of the reality. This wasn't the person I thought I knew, and I couldn't ignore the damage she'd caused. When she was finally ready to leave, we stood there in the living room, the air heavy with unspoken words. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Emily," I said, my voice steady but laced with sadness. She nodded, tears still glistening in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I wish I could take it all back." "Me too," I replied, though I didn't believe a word she said anymore. "But wishing won't change anything." As she walked out the door, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. The burden of carrying her betrayal was finally lifted, and I knew I had made the right choice. I would begin to rebuild my life again, this time without the weight of her infidelity holding me back. In the days that followed, I took time to reflect on what had happened. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, from anger and sadness to a newfound sense of freedom. I started focusing on myself, rediscovering the passions and interests that had taken a backseat to our relationship. I spent time with friends, visited my family, and even began pursuing hobbies I had long forgotten. I also sought therapy to process everything I had experienced. It helped me vent, heal, and understand how to rebuild my trust in myself. I learned that I deserved better than what Emily had offered, and I vowed not to let another person come into my life and take advantage of my kindness and vulnerability. As the months went by, I began to feel lighter, more confident, and ready to embrace whatever life had in store for me. I realized that sometimes, in order to find true happiness, you had to let go of the things that held you back, no matter how painful that process might be. In the end, I learned that betrayal, while devastating, doesn't have to define you. It can be an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. I emerged from that chapter of my life stronger and more resilient than ever, ready to face whatever came next with my head held high.